Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Experience Grad York session, Glendon Grad Admission at York. Today, we have Eileen Watson, our Graduate Recruitment and Liaison Officer, presenting this session. Take it away, Eileen.
All right, thank you so much. So yes, everyone, welcome to our very first EGY session, Glendon Graduate Programs at York. So yes, my name is Eileen. I'm the Graduate Recruitment and Liaison Officer here at York. My role is to help prospective students navigate grad admissions at York. And if I can't help you, I will find someone else who can. So let's get started. I'm just going to turn my camera off for the duration of the presentation, and then I'll turn it back on for Q&A. But today's presentation will take about 20 to 30 minutes and will cover the following topics. So a brief introduction to York, talk about why grad school, the basics and eligibility of each degree level. Then we'll go into Glendon's graduate programs, tuition or how much it costs to pursue grad studies at York, funding available for Glendon campus programs, scholarships you can potentially apply for. And then lastly, the application process. What are the program deadlines? What documents do you need to submit for each program, et cetera, et cetera. So there'll be plenty of time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A. And as always, please put any questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A as well. So York University is the third largest university in Canada. We're located in the heart of the Greater Toronto Area, just a subway ride away from downtown Toronto. Toronto, of course, is the largest and most diverse city in Canada. Almost 6 million people live in the GTA. So you might be surprised to learn that actually 50% of the population was born outside of Canada. English and French are the official languages, of course, but over 200 languages are spoken by residents every day. So York does have several campuses across the Greater Toronto Area. We have Keele, which is our main campus in Northern Toronto. There's about 50,000 students at Keele, and about 10% or 5,000 of those are grad students. Then Glendon, the main topic of today's presentation, is located in Midtown Toronto at Bayview and Lawrence. It's our bilingual campus, our founding campus. Programs there, or programs here, I should say, have additional language requirements. Either they're entirely in French or require French and English. Glendon has about 2,000 students overall, and about 10% are graduate students. In 2024, we officially opened the Markham campus, which is just north of the city, and that has a select few grad programs. But overall at York, we have over 80 graduate programs to choose from, over 100 degrees and diplomas available, and just over 6,000 graduate scholars and postdoctoral fellows. So why might someone want to pursue grad school? There's basically three main reasons that someone might want to attend: professional growth, personal development, and academic excellence. So in terms of professional growth, a grad degree opens doors to higher employment rates, higher salaries, and grad school allows you to develop a variety of career important and in-demand skills. Personal development, there's the opportunity to learn and grow and create lifelong connections. Then lastly, for academic excellence, you would be contributing to advancing and even creating knowledge, collaborating with the best and brightest in your field. So now we'll turn to basics and eligibility for each degree level. And first up, we've got our master's degree. So what is a master's degree? It's the first degree level of graduate studies, the next available level of education available after you do your BA, BSc, BCom, et cetera, et cetera. So a master's degree consists of, well, it's usually 1 to 2 years in length. So the um, length is preset by a program. It's not chosen by a student. And traditionally, a master's will come in one of three formats: coursework only, major research project, or thesis-based. So for a coursework only degree, you're usually taking about 8 graduate level courses. And that's it. Total, that's the entirety of your degree. For a major research project or a major research paper based program, you would still be taking courses, usually about 6 total throughout the whole degree. And then in addition, doing a research paper that is about 50 to 60 pages. Then lastly, there's thesis-based master's programs where you still take some courses, usually about 4 total, and that could be 4 across a year and a half, 4 across 2 years. You do that, and then in addition, you do a large research project where you end up writing a paper of about 110, 120 pages. So some programs offer all 3. Some, it's a choice between 2, usually doing a major research paper or a thesis, and others only have 1 format available. If you want to do this program, you have to do, for example, a major research paper for it. So master's degrees are not just a continuation of your undergrad. Degrees are much more focused on research. You'll have much more faculty contact. Degrees are much more self-directed, and year-round registration is required. To be eligible for a master's program, you need to have a 4-year honors undergraduate degree or the equivalent. So we'll share a link in the chat that if you studied outside of Canada, you can find the country you studied in on that list and see what the equivalent of a 4-year honors degree is in your country. Excuse me. So we look at your 4-year degree and we look at a minimum GPA. So usually a B+ in your last 2 years of study on your transcript at the time that you apply. So in terms of grading, different grading systems, a B+ is 77 on the 100-point scale, 7 on the 9-point scale that York uses, 3.3 on the 4.0 scale, second class, upper division, 4 out of 5, 15 or 16 out of 20, so on and so on. So grad admission at York is competitive. Meeting the minimum requirement certainly doesn't guarantee admission because there's always more applications than there are spots in the program. So once you complete a master's degree, if you so choose, you could go on to a PhD or a doctoral degree. So a PhD is an advanced research degree, the highest available degree granted by the university. PhDs usually are 4 or 5 years full-time, could be 6+, it depends. The format for most PhDs is very, very similar. You enter the program, you take courses in your first, maybe second year, you write a qualifying or a comprehensive exam, and then it's years and years of research. So truly, the amount of time it takes to complete your degree is the amount of time it takes to do your research project. To be eligible for a PhD, the PhD that Glendon offers, you do need to have a master's degree. We look for a B+ or above. Same grading scale as the master's, where it would be 77 out of 100, 3.3 out of 4, 7 out of 9, so on and so on. We would calculate your GPA using all available master's level grades. So undergraduate grades are not considered when you're going from master's to a PhD at York. So for the programs we're talking about today, there is French Studies and Francophone Studies, both the MA and PhD, Public and International Affairs, master's program, and then Translation Studies at the master's level. So we'll talk more about the requirements, the deadlines, and documents in just a couple slides after we move through finances. Speaking of finances, we'll talk about tuition, funding, and scholarships and awards. So a hallmark of graduate studies is that there usually is financial support available for students to pursue a program. So at York, funding and scholarships are quite separate. So we'll go through each one. First up being funding packages. So a funding package is available, or funding packages are money given to you from the university to help cover the cost of a graduate program. Funding usually fully covers tuition and healthcare or health insurance costs. If you are a full-time domestic student for a Glendon program, you're automatically considered for a funding package. When you apply to the program, you are applying for a funded spot. So if you're given a funding package, the details are included in your offer letter. It would say, congratulations, you've got a spot in this program. Here's how much money you would receive to come study with us. If you receive a funding package, you can still apply for scholarships because those are separate from a funding package. Funding is only for full-time domestic students. Part-time students and international students are not eligible for funding packages for Glendon campus programs. So I'll go over a couple of tuition charts. First up, we have domestic. So I've just listed each program out here. All tuition for all of these programs, master's or PhD, is the same. So it's $5,200 per year. Because graduate school goes year-round, and there are 3 terms per year, fall, winter, and summer, it's $1,735 per term. So that you can see the standard funding package for all of the master's programs, it is $10,000. So that is in the form of a fellowship, which is a grant. It's just money you get. So it pays your tuition with about $4,800 left over. And that's for you to spend as you wish on your living expenses. For the PhD, the funding package is just about $27,000. That is to cover your tuition and then to help with living expenses as well. And the makeup of the funding package is grants for the most part, and then a guaranteed job as a teaching assistant. So you don't need to apply for these funding packages. You do not need to pay them back. They're not based on financial need. So if someone was going to study part-time, there's no funding for part-time studies, but for part-time at the grad level at York, you wouldn't pay by credit. There's only 2 categories, full-time or part-time. Part-time tuition is exactly half of full-time. So it's about $2,600 a year or $870 per term. Now we'll go to the international table. So all of the master's programs, tuition is the same, $19,700 per year. Now that is, because there's 3 terms per year, $6,600 per term. Whereas the PhD is $19,000 or just over $6,300 per term. We'll just leave that up for 1 second. Okay, so whether you receive a funding package or not, you can apply to scholarships because they are completely separate from funding. There are a handful of entrance scholarships you could get in a funding package, depending if you've got a GPA of like A or A+, but they're not ones you can apply for. You're automatically considered for them, so I haven't included details here. But for scholarships you can apply for, there's 3 main categories. So current student awards, federal and provincial awards, and then external scholarships. So for current student awards, you can apply once you start your program. The awards generally are between $500 and $5,000 a year. And there are ones that are general, like the Academic Excellence Fund. Any full-time or part-time student can apply. It's worth $2,000 a year. And then there's others that require either study in a certain program or doing research in a certain topic or research in a certain geographic area. They're all different. Federal and provincial awards can be quite large, $15,000, $20,000, $40,000. They are prestigious, they are competitive, and they have very early application deadlines. So for a lot of these, some PhD deadlines have already passed. The master's deadline for a lot of government awards is December 1st. So keep that in mind. The deadline is before the deadline for any of the Glendon programs for admission. But these are not just entrance awards. You can apply in your first year, for your second year, um, and so on if you're in the PhD. Then lastly, for other external scholarships, these are ones where you wouldn't apply through the university, you would apply directly to the funding agency or corporation or foundation, whatever it is. They can be quite large as well. But yes, you would apply directly to the source, essentially. Then lastly, there's needs-based financial assistance. So York Financial Assistance is bursaries, or are bursaries that are given out. You can apply for them once you're a student. Usually it's no more than $1,000 a year, and you would have to demonstrate financial need to the university. And then if you are a domestic student who is a resident of Ontario, you can apply for the Ontario Student Assistance Program, or OSAP, which are grants and loans given by both the Ontario government and the federal government, but you apply through the province. So yes, that is available in it. Like you could get a funding package, apply for scholarships, and get OSAP, theoretically. Okay, so for how to apply, we're going to go over for each individual program, the deadlines and requirements. Have a look on the program website, though, especially each program site will give you tips and tricks for applying and more details on what they're wanting to see for each application. You would apply online on the York website. So we'll share the application in the chat and you can have a look through it. Even if you're not applying this year or you're going to apply, but maybe not for 2 more months or something, you can have a look through and just see what to expect. Have a read through that main website because it tells you a lot of information about the process. The process itself is in 2 parts. So part 1 is the basic online form where you fill out your information. It shouldn't take more than half an hour. You make a payment of $150 and then you submit the application. Afterwards, you would get a confirmation email from us that would say, thanks for applying. Here is where you can access the list of documents you need to submit, and here's the website where you can do that. So there is always a few days between applying and that confirmation email, but then you have control of the online system where you can submit documents, and we'll go over on the next slides what those are. So first up, for French studies, applications are now open. So if you're thinking for September 2026, you can apply at any point now. The deadline is in February, so February 15th. And for documents to submit. I'm going to go into a lot of detail on these ones. The requirements for the following programs are going to be very, very similar. So I won't go into as much detail on those, but essentially everyone is going to be required to submit all of these things. So definitely pay close attention. The session is being recorded, but won't be available online for potentially 6 weeks afterwards. So anyway, from the top, we require you to submit transcripts from any university you have ever studied at. If you were a transfer student, if you did an exchange, if you did multiple degrees, if you studied degrees in a different country, you studied 50 years ago, if you don't feel the previous studies relate to the future studies you want to do, it doesn't matter. We need to see a transcript document from every separate institution. You can use unofficial documents when you first apply. And if you're offered admission, then you would have to do final official documents, which mean they come directly from the school. They have your degree conferral on it, that kind of thing. If you're accepted, we would give you more instructions on that. We don't require college transcripts unless you did your 4-year degree there. but diplomas, certificates, postgraduate certificates, it's great that you did them, but we don't use those grades for grad admission, so no sense in submitting a transcript for those. For references, so some programs require 3, some require 2. French Studies clearly requires 3. We ask you for the name and email address of your referees. Don't ask your referees to pre-write a letter. When we ask for their name and email address, we will send them a standardized form to fill out. So referees can be academic, so professors who have taught you or supervised research, or they can be professional references, someone who's taught you or supervised you at a work or a volunteer position. So most applicants are using a mixture of the two, a mixture of the two kinds. Statement of interest. So this is 1 to 2 pages, 500 to 1,000 words, double spaced. It's why do you want to do this program? You know, making a case for why you are a good fit or a good candidate for the program. So what do you want to study? Which faculty members do you want to study it with if there's research in the program? What past experiences make you qualified? What are you wanting to do after you graduate? We have a really great session happening at noon today, where the Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Studies is doing a presentation on how to write a statement of interest. So I would highly, highly recommend either going to it live or towards the end of the session, we do share a YouTube link in the chat. We have previous how to write a statement sessions online, but super, super helpful. She really lays out like a template and tips on what to include. Next up, resume or CV. So the format doesn't really matter, but just a document that lists your education, work, volunteer experience. No particular format is needed. Then lastly, the supplementary information form. It's basically a one-page document. It's got 4 or 5 questions. Every applicant to graduate studies at York fills it out. It's very basic. Then lastly, you may need to submit a language proficiency test score, but it really depends. They need to assess French language proficiency. So most of these documents can be uploaded right to the online portal when you apply, the only exceptions really being references. You put the name and email in, but we only accept the forms directly from the referees. And then language test scores, if applicable, they need to be sent from the testing center. Excuse me. So francophone studies at the PhD level, very, very similar. So you can see the deadline is February 15th as well. And yes, apps are open. So I won't go into as much detail for each type of document, but it is the same as French studies. So transcripts from every single university you've ever studied at. Unofficial is fine, usually, unless there's like any issue with it, if it appears tampered with, that kind of thing. It's only official. Official are only usually required when, hopefully, you receive an offer. The name and email address of 3 referees. A statement of interest. Now, it does need to be in French for sure, which I'm sure anyone applying to this, that would be standard, and they would know that for this particular program. Resume or CV. So again, no particular format needed. This very standard supplementary information form. The only difference from the previous, from the MA for this program is they want to see a sample of written work. So either an article that you've published, your master's thesis, or a research paper. Could be the major research paper, could be a paper that you wrote for a course. Yeah, whatever you feel best represents your research and writing abilities. You may need to submit a French language proficiency test score, and they do sometimes choose to interview their applicants. That is at the discretion of the program, depends on different factors, but Usually it can be done via Zoom, so you don't actually have to come to Toronto specifically for it if you're not already here. But yes, it is potentially on the table. Next up is Public and International Affairs. For this master's, the deadline is April 15th. Then, very similar to both previous programs, transcripts from all university studies, name and email address of 3 referees, the statement of interest about making a case for yourself as a candidate for the program, resume or CV, then a sample of written work. So similar to the PhD in francophone studies, but they are looking for a paper that you wrote probably for a 3rd or 4th year seminar, and a cap of 7,500 words, usually between 5,000 and 7,500. You may have to submit an English or a French language proficiency test score. For this particular program, you need to be bilingual because the program is taught in English and French. So if your primary language is English, you still need to take a 1/3 of the program in French. So it would need to be French at able to take graduate level French programs, essentially. And then the standard supplementary information form. And then our last Glendon program, but certainly not least, is the Translation Studies MA. The deadline is a bit earlier in that it is February 15th, but still lots of time to apply. We need transcripts from all university studies, name and email of 3 referees, the statement of interest, and again, I'll give a plug for our session happening at noon today about how to write a statement of interest, then resume or CV, demonstrated competence in 2 languages, one of which must be English, so English and then whatever the other language, your translation language essentially. If you don't have an undergraduate degree from a Canadian university translation program, you'll have to do their entrance exam. So that would be contacting the program directly before you apply to arrange that, and then the supplementary information form. But yeah, those are the 4 Glendon programs taking on applications for fall 2026. Most grad programs at York only offer fall entry or September entry, and that's the case for these 4 programs. So that's the end of the formal presentation. I will do a plug here for the Faculty of Graduate Studies social channels. We have Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and we'll share the links to those in the chat. So please follow, like, subscribe. Lots of links to events, student profiles, news at York, lots of relevant info. And then lastly, we have our contact info. So for any questions about grad admissions at York, the email is fgsapply@yorku.ca. But that's it for today's presentation. Now we will stop to take questions. So please put any questions you have in the Q&A and we are happy to answer them.